Will you pray with me? Gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Bleeding heart liberal, Second Amendment guy, tree hugger, 1%er, soccer mom, welfare mom, vegan, redneck, coastal elite, RV owner, Tesla owner, blue dog Democrat, red hat Republican. Labels like these can evoke visceral feelings in us, and depending on who we are, they can skew quite positive or negative. In this endless, exhausting, and highly charged election season, we are getting an earful about who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. Very little context, no nuance, no real exploration of the issues. You've seen the ads, right? A campaign takes the most unflattering, grainy, black and white, menacing photo of their opponent, underscores it with some ominous music and a voiceover straight from a horror movie trailer that ends with some version of the line, "Politician X, wrong for New Jersey." Reducing people to stereotypes, slapping a clear label on them, and positioning them as an existential threat to our very existence is how politics seems to work these days. Fear sells, we are told, and we are buying. Somehow organizing our world into categories of good and evil, organizing people into categories of good and evil, keeps the delusion going that we've got it all figured out. We hear a label or a stereotype, and we imagine we know just who this person is and what category they should fall into. And few things have fueled our judgmental delusions more than social media. With just 280 characters, whole careers and reputations have been shattered on Twitter. Find an old article, a quote, or a high school yearbook picture that reveals a flaw, a mistake, or even a sin. Post it on Facebook and just let the crowd do the rest. We are reduced to our worst moments, defined by what harm we may have done or just by our associations, and there is no redemption available. Any attempt to explain or defend just digs that hole deeper. So the canceled person really has just two options: slink away in humiliation and shame and defeat, never to be heard from again, or double down on our own tarnished reputation and live into the identity of the bad guy. Now, for the folks gathering along the roadside for the parade that day, Zacchaeus clearly was someone to be canceled. After all, he was a tax collector, and not just a low-level bureaucratic one. He was the head honcho. As we learned last week, tax collectors were reviled in Jesus' day. They were the ultimate bad guys, the worst kind of traitors, because they were Jews who worked for Rome, funding that brutal occupation by selling out their own neighbors. And they got mighty rich in the process. And for Jesus' followers at that time, being rich was almost as despised as being a tax collector. Because if you were rich in first century Palestine, strong odds were you got that way by cheating someone else. There was no such thing as an even economic playing field. Wealth was accumulated either through slave labor or charging exorbitant rent to your tenants, cheating hired hands out of wages, or charging outrageous interest on loans, or by being a tax collector and just taking it directly. And Zacchaeus would have heard Jesus loud and clear when he preached, "Woe to you rich," or told the parable about the greedy farmer who fills his barns with grain while his neighbors starved. No wonder he was excluded from the circle. No wonder he was shunned. He had made his choice, and now he was just going to have to live with the consequences. But Jesus seems to see him differently. In the middle of the celebration, he halts the parade and he calls up to Zach. He knows his reputation, but he also seems to sense something else. For there is something achingly human about this little man, awkwardly scrambling up a tree, straining to catch a glimpse of the very guy who makes him the butt of his parables. Now, he could have yelled snarky comments at Jesus. He could have sneered at the folks who were blocking his way, but he doesn't. Instead, he displays a longing, a curiosity, a willingness to literally go out on a limb to see Jesus. I mean, it's rather undignified for someone who's supposed to be such a big shot, even a little big shot, to do this. And so Jesus does the unthinkable in return. He invites himself over for dinner at Zach's house, like a friend would, like family would. And now it's the crowd who turns snarky, and they grumble and they pass judgment, and they question Jesus for eating with this man. But as Pastor Audrey West reminds us, Jesus refuses to be bound by labels. Where they see selfishness, he sees welcome. Where they see an outsider, Jesus sees a member of the family. Where they see lost, Jesus sees found. Jesus knows who and what Zach is, but he also knows who he can be. For unlike most of the lost folks that Jesus finds, the ones who are on the margins, the poor, the oppressed, the disinherited, this one is lost in a different way. While he may seem to be a powerful guy, he's actually complicit in his own oppression. He's surrounded by the injustice, just like everyone else, but he's chosen to survive by aligning himself with the bullies running the show. So he thinks he's found a way to get over and to get out, but it's more like a trap. The more he does the empire's dirty work, the more he identifies himself with it, the more he normalizes injustice, the more it becomes a part of who he is. He's a walking symptom of the sickness of his society. Sure, he's got power and position and wealth, but he has no community, no relationships, no friends, and no way out until Jesus offers him one. A path beyond the mess he has made of his life, a chance to live outside the predatory system that he himself is entrenched in, not with condemnation or judgment, but with what Jesus calls salvation. Now, this is not the kind of happily ever after, heavenly reward kind of salvation we may think of. This is better understood as liberation, a breaking of the chains of greed, fear, and loneliness that ensnare him, and replacing them instead with human ties that bind. You see, Jesus refuses to cancel Zach. He will not write him off as an irredeemable tax collector. He sees the lonely human being under the fancy robes, and he offers him the one thing that his money can't buy: real human connection. Hurry down from that tree, Zach. We're eating at your house tonight. And in that moment, Zach can suddenly see himself as something other than the bad guy. And that realization changes everything for him. When have we stereotyped someone, categorized them, canceled them, withholding our friendship because we determined they were unredeemable? When have we assigned someone one of those triggering labels without knowing the story that brought them to that place? One of the most life-changing pieces of wisdom I have found comes from the Quaker spiritual teacher Parker Palmer. Palmer has created a deep and open-hearted way of listening that we use in our Soul Circle each month. He says, when it's hard, as in, when someone has just pushed every button you have, turn to wonder. Instead of judgment, which we are so quick to do, instead of condemnation, which makes us feel oh so superior, no, turn to wonder. Wonder about their lives. Wonder about their story. Wonder about what has caused them to become the person that you feel is unworthy of relationship. And then let that wonder open you up to wonder about your own blind spots. For it takes eyes of divine love to see through the layers of labels that we wear. It takes a powerful mercy to pierce the armor of fear and hurt that separates us from one another. To be truly seen and known and accepted, even when we know we don't deserve it, can be a more powerful miracle than multiplying loaves and fishes. When Jesus says to Zach, I don't care what your reputation is. I don't care how they label you. I see you for yourself. That connection heals him. It restores him, not just to himself, although that is where it must begin, but to his neighbors as well. The deep mercy of Jesus, which overflowed from his heart into Zach's own, now flows from Zach out into his community that he had treated so badly. He wants now to live differently. He wants to make it right. The salvation that has come to Zach's house is not the product of cancellation. It is the result of restoration, of knitting back together what had been torn apart. The money that he repays is not a financial transaction, so much as it is a sign of transformation, a pivot towards generosity and justice, a first step toward solidarity and true relationship with his neighbors. It breaks those chains of greed and insecurity and loneliness and allows him to see his neighbors as part of his family, to share the kind of radical inclusion and acceptance that he felt from Jesus. And perhaps it is the first step for his neighbors to see him as part of the family too. For whenever we see through the eyes of Jesus, we are invited to wonder, and to let that wonder bring us into deeper community and to give us the kind of open, merciful hearts that can truly love beyond the labels. May it be so.